checking your homework from homework 1, seeing how you did. So now we're going to student handout 2, and we're going to learn vertical and adjacent angles. So yesterday we learned 2 new vocabulary words. What were the 2 new vocabulary words?
Supplementary and complementary.
Supplementary and complementary. Supplementary added up to 180. Complementary added up to 90. Okay, now we have 2 new. Before we do that, we're going to practice a few things. Angles are formed when 2 lines intersect. Okay, we're going to practice using our protractor. So, every protractor has a hole punched in the middle of the plastic. That hole punch is supposed to line up with the dead corner of your shape. So, and then the lines going off of it is to line up with the sides or the lines that's drawn on your paper. Mine obviously doesn't have a hole punch, but it has the lines in a corner. So I'm going to drag this over, put my hole punch right in the corner, and line up my lines. You're doing that the same with your protractor. Now I'll need to see the 2 lines of my shape. I see a line here of measure of angle A, and I did not want to move that. Go back. And I see a, stop. I see a line here from my shape. Well, I've got to find the 0. So am I using the top set of numbers or bottom set of numbers?
The bottom. I mean the top.
The top. So looking at my protractor, how long is what is the angle measure of my shape?
50 degrees.
50 degrees. So angle of measure A is 50 degrees. I can leave the protractor where it is to measure angle B because it's ready to go. This time, line A, what 0 am I using this time? The top row or the bottom row? Bottom. And I'm going to this line again, so I have to see what is the measure
130.
of B. It would have to be 130 since I'm using the bottom row of measurements. Then for the bottom set, you have to rotate your protractor. So I'm going to rotate my protractor. Look how straight they allowed my lines to be. Okay, now I'm lined up for the bottom half. We can measure angle C. Angle C here. The line is spitting out right there. So am I using the top half or the bottom half of my protractor?
Top half.
The top. And I need to measure to that line. So what is the measurement of angle C?
50 degrees.
50 degrees. You were off just a hair. Do I need to move my protractor?
No.
No, I could readjust it, but I don't need to. Now, I need to find a line that's pointed at 0. So am I using the top set of numbers or the bottom set of numbers? Bottom. And I've got to meet this line. Is it right? There it goes. meet this line over to that line. And how big is measure of angle D?
130 degrees.
130 degrees. So now you kind of have a little bit of an idea of how the protractor works. That's as far as we're getting into the protractor and measuring. So leave the protractors on your desk. I shouldn't see them being about. All right, so we're done with the protractor. I'm going to tell mine to skedaddle. I have some lovely lines, but they're in my way. Erase those, get out my way. All right, going to answer some questions now. What do you notice about the angle measures? These 4 angle measures, what do you notice about them?
They're all
Nathan?
They're all the same, like, okay, A and C are still the same measures, but it was just we had to put the protractor to do it.
Okay, A and C are the same measures. What both equals up to 180? Like A and B? A and B equal 180, so I see that. What you got? Supplementary angles, you see it? I see supplementary angles. What I really wanted you to see is that A and C are congruent. Congruent might be a new word for you. Congruent means equal. And B and D are equal. All right, so A and C are equal, B and D are equal. What do you notice about the sum of all 4 angles above? Sum means what?
Addition.
Addition. So what do you notice about the sum, since you were supposed to have a calculator on your desk?
Wait.
All 4 of them?
No.
They-
A, B,
They all add up to 180. All 4 of them add up to what?
540.
360. That is why my shape made a perfect circle. If I was to use all these angles, I get a 360. A 360 shape is a circle. So all 4 angles will add up to 360. Okay, so the sum of all 4 angles is 360 degrees. Okay, remember this coloring section that I gave you here. We're going to come back to that with when we learn our 2 new vocabulary words. Our first new vocabulary word is vertical angles. Vertical angles is a pair of opposite angles formed by intersecting lines. And I would like you, somewhere by vertical angles, to draw this image. That's scary. We have 2 birds here. Draw it next to vertical angles somewhere. Why are you talking is what I want to know. All right. This is how I see vertical angles. My silly little example here is I see bird beaks touching each other. Vertical angles are across from each other. Okay? So I have a beak and a beak touching each other. Going back to my colors here, I have two green birds here touching each other. They're green beaks. I have two purple birds. Beaks are touching. See it? Are the purple beaks relatively the same size or different sizes? Same size beaks. Okay, what about the green beaks? Same size beaks or different? They're the same. Okay, so you're not going to have a little purple Tweety bird kissing on some big old pelican. Okay, so they make the same size beaks. Back to, so vertical angles. That's just what I see here. So looking at my example, what vertical angles do you see? I have four birds here, A, B, C, and D birds. Who are vertical angles? Nathan?
A and C.
A and C are vertical angles. Gabby?
B and D.
B and D are vertical angles. That's your only vertical angle. So those are examples of vertical angles. And were they same size beaks or different size beaks?
Same size.
That means they're congruent. So if I said bird A's beak was 80 degrees, what other bird's beak do I know? Bird C's beak is also 80 degrees. If I said bird B's beak is 110 degrees, what beak do I know? D is 110 degrees. They are congruent, the same. Okay, adjacent angles is my next vocabulary word. Adjacent means two angles that share a common side and a common vertex. Vertex is where these lines intersect here. Adjacent angles is who you have to sit next to in class. Okay?
Audrey.
You're adjacent with Audrey because you have to sit next to her. Audrey's adjacent to Zach. And Zach would be adjacent to Ava. Ava's adjacent to Zach.
Adjacent to Johnny.
You're adjacent to Johnny. Okay? Those are adjacent angles, who you're sitting next to in class. So what birds are sitting next to each other in class?
The one that
B
always
and C.
B and C
B.
are adjacent. Any other birds adjacent?
A and B.
A and B are adjacent.
A and D.
A and D are adjacent. And
C.
D and C are adjacent. Adjacent is sitting next to each other. Here's just two examples. Well, just because you're sitting next to somebody in class, does that make y'all the same?
No.
No. So, bird A and B, do they look like the same size or anything?
No.
No. So, they're not equal to each other, but they do form something. What are they forming?
180 degrees.
180 degrees. They're forming a line. B and C is forming a line. So, what did we learn? A word for 180 degrees. Supplementary. So, adjacent angles are supplementary. They're going to add up to 180 degrees. All right. So, gonna practice some. Stay focused because the very end of this worksheet can get a little challenging. It's gonna be easy at first. Number one, there's 4 vocabulary words we learned. Complementary, supplementary, adjacent, and vertical. What vocabulary word do you see being used on number 1?
Vertical.
Vertical. Okay? They're vertical angles. And vertical angles tell me that they are equal to each other, congruent. So, I know these are vertical angles. So what in the world could x equal then?
148.
148, because vertical angle definition says that they are congruent, which means they are equal to each other.
Yeah, I can actually make a good grade on the lead test because there's a bunch of this on the lead.
Yes. There will be a bunch of this on the 7th grade and 8th grade lead. But you'll learn it again in 8th grade. Number 2. What vocabulary word do you see being used in number 2? She sees supplementary. Some people see adjacent. They're the same thing. Okay? They're going to add up to 180. So I know these two add to 180. So how would I go about finding what x is?
You subtract 180 from 35, which gives you 125.
Subtract it. And I get 145 degrees.
Question
Hmm?
The next one.
All right. Let's get a tad more challenging.
That one, yeah, that one.
Number 3. I see one angle labeled as x. I see one angle labeled as 94. And I see that they're telling me both of these angles together equal something. What does it equal?
117.
So I can write an equation for that. I know both of them is going to equal, what did you just say?
117.
117. Both of what's going to equal?
94 plus
94 plus x. I know both of those will add up to 117. That's all that problem is saying. Well, they asked what the value of x is, so how do I solve for x? Subtract.
94 from both sides.
So I subtract 94 from both sides, and what do I get for x?
23 degrees.
23 degrees. So I know this x is 23 degrees. This one's 94. Both of them together should equal 117. Angle measures. Well, one of them was 23, one was 94. That's all I have to write.
Oh, so it's not.
Number 4 is a lot like number 3. I see an angle labeled x, an angle labeled 2x, and I see saying both of them together will equal 141. So how can I write this equation? It equals 141. What equals 141? 2x plus x. Well, what should I do with simplifying that? Have I combined all like terms first?
3x equals.
This is 3x equals 141. Now it's ready for me to solve. How do I solve that?
Divide 3 by each side.
Divide by 3 to each side, and what would x equal?
47 degrees.
47 degrees. So I know this little guy is 47 degrees. And this guy says I need 2 sets of x's. Well, 1x equals 47. So times 2, what does 2x equal? 94. So what are the 2 angle measurements?
94 and 47.
94 and 47 degrees.
This is a little challenging.
Oh, just hold your breath.
Oh no.
I'm about to rock your world.
Are you really?
Yep. Number 5. What vocabulary word you see? Vertical. Vertical says they are
Equal.
equal. So what could my equation be?
3x plus 1. Oh, wait.
3x.
You just told me they equal each other.
3x equals
3x equals 20. Well, so I know that this guy is going to equal 20. I'm just looking what x equals. How would I solve for x? By 3 to each side. Pretty sure I get 6.6 repeating degrees.
Yes.
Amen. A 7.
You know why they put the 7 at the end?
They round it.
Because they have to round, and the screen's not big enough to keep going on forever.
Why don't they just put a line on top?
Because they don't have that feature on a calculator.
You know,
And so what did both of these angles, what were they? 20 and 20. Now, the next 3. I'm going to do number 6 like I would work it myself. And if I'm being honest with you, this is probably my funnest thing to do in math because it's like a puzzle. Okay, so number 6, I'm just going to rock and roll with it with none of your input. Then 7 and 8 will kind of work together. First, angle relationships allow us to determine any unknown angle measures. All angles around a point or vertex will have a sum of 360 degrees. Okay, looking at number 6. I have to find all the missing angles. How many is missing?
3.
3. They gave me how many?
2.
2. Okay. So, I'm using all 4 of my vocabulary words. First thing I always look for is supplementary angles, straight lines. But I have to include in numbers or ones that I know, like the 60 or 40. Because I see a straight line with M and K, but do I know anything? Is that going to help me solve any problems? No. I have to solve something with stuff I know. So, I see this forms 180 degrees. Well, to find K, I can create an equation for that. I know 60 plus 40 plus K should equal what?
180.
180. So there's an equation. Well, to find K, I could do 180 minus 40 minus 60, and K would be what? 80. So I found one of them. Now, I can find other supplementary angles, or I could look for vertical angles. I see bird K is vertical to somebody. Who is it vertical to? It's not vertical to M. It's vertical to P. Well, that tells me P is how big? 80 degrees. Because they're vertical. So now I'm only missing one, which is M. Do you see something I can use, a definition to find M? Some people see supplementary. You see vertical? Okay, I had a kid a few hours ago see vertical, and I totally see it. I could have done supplementary of these two. Should equal 180, so what does M equal?
100.
100. So I know this is going to be 100. But he saw it a little different, and it's okay. He sees the vertical angle of this vertical is vertical to these two shapes.
That's what I saw.
See that?
That's what I was gonna say.
So these two are vertical, so what would M be then?
100.
100 still. It doesn't matter how you see it. We can all solve the puzzle different and still get the same answers. So the bottom part I'm not real concerned about. I like filling in this top part. Okay, let's work on 7. So looking at it, what's that square mean? 90 degrees. So I'm just going to fill that in so I feel like I did something. What do you see that could help me find the 2? Okay, someone sees vertical angles. Do you see a vertical angle that's helpful?
32 and 90.
32 and 90 are vertical to who?
No, to J.
To J. So that means J could add up to 32 and 90 in
122.
so J is 122. Okay? I've got to find G. How can I find G?
You subtract, you add supplementary.
Supplementary. Who is he supplementary to?
3290.
He could be supplementary here, or he could be supplementary here. It don't matter. Either one are straight lines, right? So 180 minus 122,
58.
so G equals 58. They didn't care what that extra little angle was. They said you don't have to find it.
So you only have to find where there's a variable?
Only where there's a variable, yeah. So on number 8, I only have to find one variable. What relationship, vocabulary word, could I use to find that? Allie, what you got?
Vertex. Or like you have to do other stuff, but first. Vertical. So you would do
I see something other, a lot shorter for me to get to my answer.
supplementary.
Supplementary is what? Adds up to?
180.
I see that these 3 form that straight line. So that means, what is my equation here then, Nathan?
112 plus 29 equals Z.
No, 112 plus 29 plus Z equals 180. Then solving for Z, I would subtract 180 minus 112 minus 29, and what does Z equal? 39. And that's the only angle they wanted me to find. So it's not too terrible. See, it's kind of like fun, like a puzzle. So you have homework 2, and you have plenty of time to get that knocked out now. Thanks for learning, and do good on your test.